You think men melt because of beauty? Wrong. Men don't lose their minds over looks. They lose them when a woman knows this secret. And once you use it, he'll find himself thinking about you when he should be working, eating, even sleeping. Here's the truth. A man doesn't melt when you compliment him or when you give him everything he wants. He melts when you do the exact opposite, when you make him feel. It's not about chasing. It's about planting thoughts so deep in his mind that he can't escape them. That's why playful teasing mixed with genuine attention works. He's not used to a woman who can laugh with him, challenge him, and then in the next breath look at him with a softness that says, "I see you." That contrast breaks through his armor. Men live in a world where they're expected to be strong, tough, always in control. But the truth? What they crave is a moment where they don't have to be. When you switch from being playful and witty to suddenly vulnerable and real, it disarms him. It's in that exact moment he melts. Because suddenly, it's not about games, it's about connection. And he can't fake his way through that. When you're able to give your full attention, looking him in the eyes, listening like no one else exists, he feels something rare. Most people only half listen, already planning their next line. But when you're fully present, he feels chosen. That's not just attractive, that's unforgettable. And if you're sitting there thinking, okay, but how do I actually use this without giving away all my power? Stay with me, because in the next part, I'm going to show you the exact moment to do it so he feels addicted to your presence instead of taking you for granted. There is a quiet, sacred force that exists inside every woman. A power that doesn't need to chase, prove, or persuade. It simply exists. When you begin to connect with this deeper part of yourself, not only as a woman but as an energy field, something extraordinary begins to take place. Men start reacting in ways they can't even fully explain. They soften, they open, they begin to melt mentally and emotionally. And this doesn't happen because of what you say, it happens because of how you are. You see, men are often taught to hide their emotions. They're told to stay strong, logical, and detached. But under all that conditioning is a hidden desire to feel, to connect, and to surrender into a safe space where their soul can rest. Most men don't even realize they want this, but when you awaken it, the change is impossible to ignore. It isn't manipulation, it's energetic alignment, and it's magnetic. In this message, I won't give you surface level tricks or common dating tips. I want to take you much deeper into the inner world, where attraction isn't about games, but about resonance. Because when a man feels safe in your presence, when he feels mirrored emotionally and rewired by your energy, he doesn't just like you, he begins to melt for you from the inside out. So if you've ever wondered why some women don't need to try hard, yet men are drawn to them, this is the reason. It's not what they do, it's who they are. By the time we're done, you'll have the insight, the awareness, and the tools to step into being that kind of woman. The woman whose presence gently breaks down his walls and opens his heart. There is a noticeable change that happens in a man's inner world when he meets a woman who has chosen to live fully in her body, in her heart, and in her truth. We aren't just bodies of skin and bone. We are living fields of energy, sending out signals far beyond words. And when you, as a woman, start walking through the world grounded in your real essence, something powerful unfolds. His restless thoughts begin to quiet, his tension starts to fade. Without knowing why, he feels pulled toward you, captured by your presence. Most people live in a kind of daze. Their attention is scattered, their nervous system is unsettled, and their inner world reacts constantly to what's happening outside. But a woman who has trained herself to stay present, who no longer chases approval or fears rejection, shines a field that is steady, soothing, and complete. She isn't searching for safety, she is safety. And men sense it. Even if they can't put it into words, their emotional brain picks up on the signal that they are in front of something rare and nourishing. Now, let's look deeper. The average man is trained to value logic, order, and control. But inside, he's often cut off from his emotions, not because he doesn't want to feel, but because he never learned it was safe. As a boy, when he cried, he was told to stop. When he felt too much, he was told to be strong. So, he learned to shut those parts down. He built mental walls just to get by. But behind those walls, there is still a strong desire for something that feels like home. A softness, a peace, an inner stillness. When he meets a woman who doesn't just talk about love but lives it, his mind doesn't panic, it lets go. What many women don't realize is that their energy itself can be medicine. When you stop trying to prove you're enough, when you stop working hard for worthiness and instead settle into your natural self, the whole dynamic changes. You stop moving from wounded energy, trying to impress, fix, or control, and you start resting in your calm strength. This isn't weakness, this is power. Feminine power doesn't need to scream, it whispers in subtle ways that touch places words can't. Men are built to respond to this quiet frequency. When a man feels your calm, steady center, his nervous system starts to calm down. His busy mind, always solving, planning, defending, starts to let go. Why? Because your presence tells his brain, there's nothing to fix here, nothing to guard against. You're safe. This takes down his defenses and awakens his feelings again. The part of him that longs to feel, to trust, and to open finally gets a chance to breathe. Neuroscience shows us that the brain reacts to energy before it reacts to words. Your emotional state carries a signature that others notice instantly. So when you walk into a room with a calm nervous system, an open but unattached heart, and the energy of full self-acceptance, you're sending direct signals to his subconscious. You're telling him, I am whole. I don't need you to make me complete, but I see you, I feel you, and I allow you to be. This message is rare. Most people are either grasping for love or pushing it away. But when you become the invitation, not the demand, you touch his deeper nature. His protector begins to relax. His performer takes a rest. His real self comes out. He may not understand it at first. He might even feel confused about why he's so drawn to you. But it's not your looks or your words. It's that, in your presence, he remembers who he is beneath the walls. And that memory feels like melting. Not a loss of himself, but a return to himself. This is why emotional attraction is often stronger than physical attraction in the long run. A man can see countless beautiful women and feel nothing change inside him. But one woman, deeply present and alive in her being, can shift the chemistry of his mind. She triggers oxytocin, the bonding hormone. She lifts dopamine, the pleasure chemical. Not through tricks, but through genuine resonance. She lowers cortisol, the stress hormone, just by being steady in herself. But here's the key. This kind of energy doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing less. From dropping the masks, the pretending, the need to perform. It comes from breathing deeply, from being in your body, from standing still while the world rushes around, from remembering that your value isn't something you have to prove, it's something you already are. When you live like this, you naturally become a healer for the masculine. You let him feel again, not because you push him, but because your presence gives him space. And yes, he melts. Not because you forced him, but because, for once, he doesn't need to act. He doesn't need to put on a role. He doesn't need to lead. He gets to rest in the energy of a woman who leads herself. That kind of energy is magnetic. That kind of presence is unforgettable. That is what makes a man's mind stop spinning and start letting go. Because in you, he discovers what his soul has been quietly searching for. Stillness, wholeness, truth. And it all begins the moment you decide to stop looking outside of yourself for what you already are. You are the medicine, you are the reflection, you are the frequency that softens his mind and awakens his heart. There is a mysterious strength in a woman who knows how to stay calm and non-reactive, not cold, not distant, but fully aware and emotionally steady, even in the middle of challenge. This kind of presence doesn't usually come naturally. It is built. It grows through awareness, and it carries an effect most men don't even have words for, but they feel it deeply. Because when you don't respond the way they expect, when you don't fall into the same old emotional patterns they've seen before, You don't just look different, you actually shift something inside them. A man who is guarded, defensive, or quick to pull away has been trained by life to protect himself from emotional chaos. Maybe he grew up with an unpredictable parent, maybe he dealt with painful partners in the past, or maybe he was simply shaped by the roughness of the world. Either way, he's built an inner warning system that is always on alert, scanning for emotional danger. He's not just protecting himself from heartbreak, he's protecting his nervous system from overload. But here's the hidden truth. When you stay calm and non-reactive, you bypass that alarm system completely. You break the pattern. His brain, which is always ready for conflict, suddenly has nothing to push against. And in that quiet space, he starts to trust you. Not because of fancy words, but because of how you carry yourself. Every time you stay centered instead of chasing, every time you pause instead of pressuring, every time you breathe instead of begging, you are doing something powerful to his mind. You are teaching it to relax. Let's look at this from the science side. The human nervous system has what are called mirror neurons. These neurons reflect the emotional state of the person we are interacting with. So if you meet his distance with anxiety, anger, or neediness, those neurons reflect that stress back to him. This makes his inner fear, that emotions equal chaos, feel even more true. But when you stay grounded, calm, and steady, his system slowly adjusts to yours. Like two tuning forks matching frequency, your inner balance starts to bring order to his scattered energy. And before he even realizes it, he feels drawn closer, not because of demand, but because of peace. This is the paradox many women never discover. We're taught to talk things out, to demand answers, to make him understand. But logic doesn't open a closed heart. Energy does. Silence, when used with strength, not withdrawal or punishment, but real presence, is one of the most powerful tools a woman can use. It's not about ignoring him, it's about staying non-attached, trusting, and rooted in your inner knowing. When a man notices that his behavior doesn't shake you, doesn't make you run after him, doesn't collapse you into fear, he starts questioning his own automatic reactions. And in that space, something new can grow. Awareness, emotions, healing. This kind of non-reactivity isn't about pretending not to care. It's about caring so much for your own peace that you refuse to force an outcome. You understand that real intimacy cannot be pushed, it has to be invited. And an invitation is always stronger than insistence. A man will naturally move toward the energy where he feels the safest. Emotional safety doesn't come from control, it comes from stability. From a woman who doesn't need him to change in order to remain aligned with herself. Here's the important part. When you stop reacting, it's not only him you're affecting, you're also affecting yourself. You are rewiring your own brain. Each time you choose presence over panic, patience over pressure, you are shifting the chemicals inside your body. You lower your cortisol, the stress hormone. You raise your oxytocin, the bonding hormone. You naturally become more magnetic, not by trying to change him, but by how you treat yourself while with him. That inner shift creates your energy field, and your field becomes the experience he feels in your presence. You turn into the woman who is unpredictable, but not in a dramatic or unstable way. You are unpredictable because you don't follow the old scripts. You don't crumble when things feel uncertain. You don't chase after clarity, you embody clarity. You don't shout for love, you become love itself. And that presence breaks through his old patterns, his old defenses, his avoidance, his power games. They stop working because you don't feed them anymore. You've stepped outside of that cycle. Here's the truth that might surprise you. Most men don't actually enjoy playing games. They don't feel good running away, avoiding hard talks, or shutting down emotionally. But they've learned those habits because they don't trust what will happen if they open up. They're afraid that if they show weakness, they'll be judged. If they speak truth, they'll be attacked. If they step into emotion, they'll lose control. And when you meet them with emotional intensity, even when justified, it only confirms those fears. But when you don't, when you stay calm and open, They feel something rare, safety, and safety unlocks them. It doesn't happen overnight. It isn't always perfect, but it happens because deep down, the masculine heart longs for a place where it can be soft without being crushed. And you become that place, not by silencing your truth, but by honoring your nervous system first. This is why emotional mastery is one of the greatest gifts a woman can ever build, not for control, but for freedom, yours and his. When you learn to notice your emotions without letting them run you, when you can walk through discomfort without collapsing under it, you step into sovereignty, and sovereignty is what heals trauma. Not just your trauma, but his too, because your steady presence gives him silent permission to face his own emotions without drowning in them. So remember this, every time you choose not to react, you are moving from a higher place. You are sending out a signal of deep emotional intelligence, and that signal bypasses his defenses and speaks straight to his nervous system. It says you are safe here, not because I've made things easy, but because I've made myself whole. And in that wholeness, his restless mind begins to quiet. His fear starts to soften. His walls slowly come down, not because you forced them, but because you didn't. There is something profoundly powerful that happens when a woman shares her truth without apology, without expectation, and without attachment. It isn't vulnerability that begs for approval or emotions used to manipulate. It isn't performance or drama, it is presence, raw, calm, and real. When a woman speaks from her heart, not to be saved, but simply to be seen, it creates a crack in the masculine mind. It breaks logic, it overrides control, it cuts through years of emotional walls and wakes something sacred inside him. Empathy, connection, truth. This is when he begins to soften, not because he's weak, but because he is finally allowing himself to feel. Most men are taught to live in their heads, to solve problems, to lead, to manage, to figure things out. And while that has value, it also builds distance from the emotional side they often fear or don't fully understand. But the heart cannot be explained with logic. It has to be felt. And the only way to invite a man into his feelings is not by forcing him, but by going there yourself. Vulnerability, when shown without neediness, works as a silent invitation. I am safe in my heart, and you can be too. But let's be clear, real vulnerability is not the same as emotional dumping. It's not pouring out every fear or wound hoping he'll fix you. That only adds to the emotional weight many men are already afraid of. True vulnerability is about sitting with your truth, your fear, your longing, your joy, and letting it exist in the space between you. It's about allowing yourself to be seen in that space without hiding or acting. That kind of presence speaks louder than any request. And when a man sees it, he begins to feel things he didn't know he still could. Why? Because your vulnerability reflects the parts of himself he's long pushed away. You become a mirror, not of weakness, but of humanity. He sees in you what he has avoided in himself, and in that reflection something powerful happens. His mind, always busy trying to protect and control, starts to quiet. His breathing slows, his defenses relax, because now he's not trying to win or fix anything. He's simply feeling. He's connected to something real, and that reality, your emotional truth, is something he cannot control. That's why it moves him, that's why it touches him, because he can't argue with it, he can't deny it, he can only take it in. And receiving, for many men, is the most unsettling yet powerful thing. They are used to giving, protecting, providing, but when you let them simply witness you, when you let them sit with you in your rawness, you open a doorway into a new kind of connection.
You want you. I know nearer. It's I think it grows you to the heart today. And you like your heart.
One where nothing has to be done, but everything is felt. This is where his mental armor starts to dissolve. The stories he tells himself about staying distant, the habits of detachment, the fear of being drowned by your feelings, those begin to shift. Not because you told him to change, but because you showed him what it means to be real. You gave him something his mind could never create. a sense of safety inside emotions. So often women are told to be less emotional in relationships, as if their sensitivity is a weakness. But what if your sensitivity is the very key to his awakening? What if the feminine heart, when expressed from a place of wholeness instead of wounds, is the medicine that brings him back to his soul? This isn't about being dramatic or overwhelming, it's about being real, open, and willing to be seen in your happiness and in your pain. Not to make him feel guilty, but to allow him to truly feel you. That is how trust is built. Not through perfection, but through honesty. When a man sees that you are not afraid of your own heart, he starts to trust that you won't punish him for his. He begins to believe that maybe it's safe to feel, to let go, to surrender. And in that surrender, his mind begins to release its grip. His thoughts quiet down, his ego softens, and his emotional body, which may have been asleep for years, begins to wake up. But here's the truth. This only works when your vulnerability comes from self-trust. If you are sharing from fear, hoping he will save you, he will feel the weight of it. But if you share from openness, trusting that your truth is enough, whether he approves or not, he will feel uplifted. He will feel honored to be allowed into that space. Because now you are not asking him to carry you, you are simply letting him see you. And that kind of witnessing has the power to change how he sees intimacy altogether. We live in a world that praises independence but fears closeness. Yet the truth is, closeness is not the enemy. Emotional openness is not weakness, it is the doorway to real connection. And when you lead with it, not as a trick but as your natural way of being, you invite men into a new space. A space where their heart is welcome. A space where their feelings are not a threat, but a bridge. Not every man will be ready to meet you there. Some will run. Some will shut down. Some will avoid it. But the ones who are ready, the ones who long for something deeper, they will melt. They won't be able to resist it because your presence, your openness, your truth, it's the one thing their logical mind can't block out. It's the energy of the heart. And no wall is strong enough to keep that away forever. So when you speak your truth, when you show your heart without trying to control his response, you awaken a new kind of desire in him, a desire not based on winning or performing, but on connecting. He doesn't just want your body, he wants to know your soul, he wants to feel the whole of you. And that kind of desire, the emotional kind, is the one that lasts. There is a quiet but powerful strength in a woman who can mirror a man's emotional world, not to copy him but to reflect back what he cannot yet say himself. This kind of emotional resonance isn't loud. It isn't about fixing, analyzing, or giving advice. It's about feeling him without taking on his pain, seeing him without trying to change him. It's the art of being a living mirror, holding space for what exists in him even when he doesn't realize it himself. And when you do this, when your emotions align with his truth, his mind relaxes, his heart starts to open, and without even knowing why, he begins to feel understood in a way that cuts through every defense he's ever built. Most men aren't used to being seen emotionally. They are valued for what they do, not for what they feel. From an early age, they are taught to bury emotions, to hide sensitivity, to cut off from their inner world in the name of strength. So when a woman comes along who doesn't just listen to his words but feels what's underneath, who notices the unspoken, who responds to tone more than content, energy more than logic, it changes something deep in his system. It creates resonance, and resonance is where intimacy begins. Emotional mirroring is not imitation. It is a natural alignment between your inner state and his hidden truth.